Hello, all you freedom-loving people. A couple of arrests have been made, and they are of judges who are allegedly helping illegal migrants, and the Trump administration is in talks with China over trade while helping to bring peace in Ukraine. Okay, let's get into it. On Friday, FBI Director Kash Patel announced that the FBI had arrested a Milwaukee County, Wisconsin circuit judge for allegedly assisting an illegal migrant in evading arrest. Patel confirmed in a post on X that Judge Hannah Duggan was arrested on obstruction charges. According to Patel, the FBI made the arrest based on evidence that Judge Duggan obstructed an immigration arrest operation last week. Patel said, "We believe Judge Duggan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Flores Ruiz is in federal custody. However, the judge's alleged obstruction created an increased danger to the public." In the court filing that was unsealed today, it included an affidavit from an FBI special agent who described the incident. Federal immigration agents traveled to the Milwaukee County Courthouse with an arrest warrant to detain Flores Ruiz earlier this month. But the FBI special agent said that at one point, Judge Duggan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through a jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. The FBI special agent called the situation unusual. The affidavit said that later Flores Ruiz escaped the courthouse and he was arrested by federal agents after a foot chase. Duggan has been a Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge since 2016, and she typically oversees misdemeanor cases. She ran for re-election unopposed for the Branch 31 division in 2022, and her current term is scheduled to end in August of 2028. An Associated Press reporter said that Duggan appeared in a federal court hearing today and she was released from custody. A lawyer for Duggan said during the court hearing that the judge wholeheartedly regrets and protests her arrest. It was not made in the interest of public safety. And on Thursday, another judge was also arrested. This time it was in New Mexico. A former New Mexico judge, Joel Cano, and his wife, Nancy Cano, were arrested when FBI agents raided their home on suspicion of housing a suspected illegal migrant and gang member. Dan Bongino, who is Kash Patel's deputy, confirmed the arrest by posting the news on X. Joel Cano resigned from his post last month, and the state Supreme Court permanently barred him from holding judicial office in the state. They barred him on Tuesday over allegations that the Canos took in an illegal migrant. The alleged illegal migrant was also a suspected member of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. The couple are expected to be charged with evidence tampering after the migrant, Christian Ortega Lopez, was arrested at their residence in February. Documents allegedly show that Nancy Cano hired the migrant for home repairs and then offered him housing. Evidence obtained in the FBI raid also allegedly linked Ortega Lopez to the Venezuelan gang. Attorney General Pam Bondi also confirmed the arrest today. During an interview with Fox News, Bondi gave some updates on both arrests. Let's check what she said regarding the New Mexico judge.
So Judge Cano, soon to be former Judge Cano, got his charges were just unsealed. He's charged with obstruction. He admitted post Miranda. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones himself, took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. Sandra, not only that, this TDA member, and he had on a necklace that said kill, something about death. He had tattoos all over him. He also had on his cell phone pictures of two decapitated victims, decapitated, gruesome photos, and he was sending them out, and whoever he was sending them to was sending back saying, hey, you need to be careful, you shouldn't be sending these, you shouldn't be texting these photos out. Not only that, these two, the judge and his wife, gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're charged with. In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members, and they're shooting.
President Trump took to the Truth Social platform on Thursday to reveal that he'd be meeting with Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, along with his fellow Atlantic journalists Michael Shera and Ashley Parker later in the day. So who is Goldberg? You might remember the Signalgate story a while ago, right? Goldberg is the one who claimed that he was mistakenly added to a Signal chat group that included senior intelligence and defense officials. He accused Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth of leaking classified information. So President Trump was not impressed with Goldberg. President Trump described Goldberg as the person responsible for many fictional stories about him. So why did President Trump accept an interview with them? That's because Goldberg's team told White House officials that they were working on an article titled "The Most Consequential President of the Century." President Trump said, "I am doing this interview out of curiosity and as competition with myself, just to see if it's possible for The Atlantic to be truthful. Are they capable of writing a fair story on Trump?" For years, President Trump has faced a concerted campaign of negative smear campaigns from mainstream media. Jen Psaki, formerly President Biden's White House press secretary and now host of MSNBC's primetime program, recently admitted as much. According to the New York Post, Psaki outed herself on the podcast The Grill Room by claiming that the channel only focuses on negative news about President Trump. President Trump probably figured that these media outlets report negative news about him anyway, especially during his campaigns, even if it isn't true and even without an interview. So if they sat down together and talked, perhaps the situation would be different. And now that President Trump is fulfilling his campaign promises, what's the worst thing that can happen? President Trump said, "The way I look at it, what can be so bad? I won." On Thursday, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, said that records from millions of recipients aged 120 years or older have been updated. This was part of a major cleanup at the Social Security Administration. DOGE has been conducting cleanups for about 7 weeks. DOGE posted on X that about 11 million Social Security recipients who were listed as being aged 100 or older have now been marked as deceased. Another 1.4 million records are also expected to be updated within 2 weeks. The new chart shared by DOGE showed that more than 2.7 million records of people aged 120 to 129 were removed during the cleanup. More than 3.4 million accounts belonging to individuals aged 130 to 139 were also removed. In addition, more than 3.3 million records of individuals aged 140 to 149 were marked as deceased, and another 1.3 million accounts of people aged 150 to 159 were finally removed this month. On Thursday, a judge blocked an order by President Trump that would have required voters to provide proof of U.S. citizenship during voter registration. In a March order, President Trump said that the Election Assistance Commission, the EAC, which was established by Congress, should take steps to require voters to provide documentary proof of United States citizenship when filling out state mail-in voter registration forms. The EAC recently notified states that it is considering revising the federal voter registration form. But U.S. District Judge Colleen Collar-Cotterly ruled that EACs must stop requiring voters to provide a passport or other proof of citizenship when registering. She wrote, "Our Constitution entrusts Congress and the states, not the President, with the authority to regulate federal elections. Consistent with that allocation of power, Congress is currently debating legislation that would affect many of the changes the President purports to order. And no statutory delegation of authority to the executive branch permits the president to short-circuit Congress's deliberative process by executive order." Several organizations, including the League of Hispanic Americans and Democrats, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, filed a lawsuit against the president's order, claiming it violates the U.S. Constitution. They cite a federal law that allows a voter to sign an affidavit under penalty of perjury to prove that he or she is a citizen. Government officials had asked the judge not to grant a preliminary injunction, claiming that the plaintiffs' claimed damages were speculative. They also told the judge that officials had not yet begun to implement the portion of the order dealing with proof of citizenship and may never do so. The judge said the officials' claims were untrue, noting that the EAC director had recently contacted the states about the order and said that he was considering how to modify the federal registration form. But the judge also agreed with the government's argument that the plaintiffs have no legal standing to prevent President Trump from asking the Attorney General to take action against states that count mail-in ballots after Election Day. Following Harvard University's lawsuit against the Trump administration, President Trump blasted Harvard in a post on Truth Social on Thursday. He called it a threat to democracy. President Trump wrote, "Harvard is an anti-Semitic, far-left institution, as are numerous others, with students being accepted from all over the world that want to rip our country apart. The place is a liberal mess, allowing a certain group of crazed lunatics to enter and exit classrooms and spew fake anger and hate. It's truly horrific. Now, since our filing began, they act like they are all American apple pie." Last Thursday, the U.S. Department of Education's Office of General Counsel sent a letter to President Garber on the same day stating that Harvard's reports submitted between 2014 and 2019 were incomplete and inaccurate. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon also said in a statement that the government needs to ensure that Harvard is not being manipulated by or for foreign entities. Harvard responded that it has been submitting such reports for decades, including information on gifts and contracts from foreign sources of more than $250,000 a year, including contracts to provide executive education, other training, and academic publications. In addition to freezing some of Harvard's federal funding, the White House has also sought to target Harvard's tax-exempt status, and the Department of Homeland Security has threatened to eliminate the school's ability to enroll international students. The university's president, Alan Garber, gave an interview on NBC News in which he said that he will not compromise on certain issues. He said that we are defending what I believe is one of the most important linchpins of the American economy and way of life, our universities. The federal government has been concerned for years that foreign governments are taking advantage of the free speech environment in American colleges and universities to engage in anti-U.S. propaganda, to promote a liberal, far-left agenda, and to subvert traditional American values and founding principles. In February of 2020, a report in the Wall Street Journal disclosed that a U.S. Department of Education investigation of Harvard University and Yale University found that these American universities had concealed at least $6.5 billion in grants from the Chinese Communist Party and Saudi Arabia, among other governments. Former U.S. House Speaker Newt Gingrich disclosed that one of the U.S. universities that the CCP has its eye on the most is Harvard University. He has written that the CCP has invested in U.S. universities in a variety of ways or partnered with academics and established cultural centers as part of a broader strategy by the Chinese government to compete with the U.S. by purchasing influence in U.S. schools and engaging in espionage activities. Also on Thursday afternoon, President Trump debunked one of the CCP's lies. China denied on Thursday that it is actively negotiating with the U.S. on tariffs, saying that any notion of progress in the matter was as groundless as trying to catch the wind. Guo Jiankun, a spokesman for China's foreign ministry, said during a daily briefing on Thursday that, for all I know, China and the U.S. are not having any consultation or negotiation on tariffs, still less reaching a deal. In one of China's strongest statements yet over the tariff war, the Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesperson He Yedong said that the U.S. should remove all unilateral tariff measures against China if it truly wanted to solve the issue. But President Trump told reporters in the Oval Office that U.S. officials spoke with Chinese officials on Thursday. President Trump said, "They had a meeting this morning. We've been meeting with China. but President Trump didn't provide additional details. However, he suggested that more will be revealed later. President Trump said it doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning and we've been meeting with China. Currently, the governor of the People's Bank of China, Pan Gongsheng, is reportedly in Washington, D.C. attending the spring meeting of the IMF and the World Bank. The meeting is from Monday to Saturday. On Friday, reports emerged that China quietly rolled back tariffs on some U.S. semiconductors. Bloomberg reported that Beijing is also weighing tariff relief on medical gear and chemicals. In addition, Goldman Sachs says China may exempt U.S. ethane and LPG imports from tariffs, but we don't know if this is an accomplishment of the talks or if it's because the U.S. is on the verge of reaching an agreement with South Korea. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the U.S. and South Korea held bilateral trade talks on Thursday and they could reach an agreement of understanding on trade issues as early as next week. The ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine have been ongoing since President Trump returned to the White House, and they are getting closer and closer to a deal. But on Thursday, Russia accused Ukrainian President Zelensky of undermining diplomatic efforts to reach a peace agreement by refusing to recognize that Russia owns Crimea. President Trump had already, in a social media post, reminded the Ukrainian side that Crimea was lost years ago during the Obama administration. But Russia has also taken action recently that Ukraine can complain about, such as the recent attack on Kyiv. On Wednesday evening, President Trump had just said that Russia is ready for a deal. He said, "I will say I think that Russia is ready, and a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. I think we have a deal with Russia." But as we mentioned yesterday in the early hours of Thursday morning, Russia launched a massive missile and drone strike on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Even though President Trump was not happy with the attack, nevertheless, he has expressed his hope that there is still a deal to be achieved to bring peace to the Ukrainian war. He said that there was a lot of resentment between Russia and Ukraine, but they both want peace. However, Zelensky may be harder to deal with.
I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far it's been harder, but that's okay. It's all right. But I think we have a deal with both. I hope they do it because I'm looking to save. And, you know, we spend a lot of money, but this is about a lot of humanity. This is the worst. I get the pictures, the satellite pictures. I've never seen anything like it. Of the fields after some of these battles. It's horrible that it's going for nothing. We would have never had this problem. You would have never had that war if I were president. I guarantee you that. And for 4 years, you didn't have it. Yeah.
Today, President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, arrived in Moscow for his fourth meeting with President Putin. Putin joined the meeting with his foreign policy advisor, Yuri Ushakov, and his investment envoy, Kirill Dmitriev. On the same day as the meeting, an explosion occurred outside Moscow. In the explosion, a Russian general was killed in a car bombing. Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, the deputy head of the main operational department on the general staff of the Russian armed forces, was killed by an explosive device that was placed in his car. Still, it's unclear who was responsible for the blast. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova described the incident as a terror attack. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave us a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and the notification bell after you subscribe. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.